We were just talking about how there's like fights where it's like the heart, the grittiness, and things like that. And then there's the fights you fall in love with just from a skill perspective. And honestly, I think the next three fights very much come down to skill level. And Askar Askarov and Kai France are definitely on the short list for a title shot. It's just so funny to see that the flyweight division's been as busy as it has been, given where the UFC wanted to take it. And I feel like guys like me who absolutely fall in love with the flyweights, you're always going to have that in the back of your mind. Like there was potential that this never would have existed. But you really think about that, it's kind of crazy. And you got a guy like Askar Askarov who, from the Russian side of skill, it seems like he's been the highest highly touted prospect from a flyweight perspective. I think that we've seen a lot of the guys like Moreno for a while, Davison Figueiredo for a while, but Askarov has been on his way up for quite some time. And I think, outside of maybe some action and maybe some injuries and things like that, he's starting to find his own. And the big thing for me with Askarov is I love the scrambling. I love his ability to go in and out. He's able to throw, move back, throw, kind of go for a takedown. It's just he's very creative. He scrambles well. And I think that's what Kai France has to look out for. I think that Kai brings a kickboxing base that has a lot of, added elements of MMA. He's got the movement. So now he brings in the boxing and the Muay Thai. So he's just got a really good stand-up game, coupled with the idea that, he might be able to level change if he needs to. I don't think that this is a person that's going to level change out of offense, but I think that his scrambling ability for a guy who's considered predominantly a striker is really, really good. So if there's an area of this fight that I'm very much looking forward to, it is the scrambling. I think that both these guys are very highly skilled strikers. I think that Kai France could prove to have maybe a slight edge in just terms of creativity. I think volume-wise, this is anybody's fight. I think both guys are just going to come out hard and swing for the fences for a bit. And then with Kai France, you kind of see the dad strength, right? We've seen him in bad situations, and then he comes back pretty strong. The Roger, I think it was Bontorin, that was an example of where it was close, man. He was close to, getting submitted, and he ends up finishing the fight in that early rounds. So I'm just trying to figure out if I can see Kai France having the power to even put Askarov away. I just think that that's something that's very difficult to do, for one. And on top of everything, it's just Askarov has been kind of that highly talked about title challenger for quite some time. And the big thing is he's taken on some of the best talent the UFC has to offer, right? Like, this is his... Since he came over from ACB, the fact that his first fight was a draw against Brandon Moreno in 2019... And then it's Tim Elliott, Alexander Pantoja, Joseph Benavidez. I mean, talk about a short list of fights to basically take you to a title shot. Kai France and Askar Askarov, in my opinion, are basically fighting for the next title shot. And the big thing about Kai France that I think people are going to forget is look at the losses, right? Yes, there's some earlier in his career in the Asian ranks that, you have to consider, but then you look at his come up going into the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter that he was a part of. I mean, it's just been a huge kind of rise. The Paiva debut after the Elias Garcia debut, that Rolian Paiva fight was phenomenal. Then we got Mark De La Rosa takes on Brandon Moreno in his fourth UFC fight, and gets that L. And then Brandon Royval is the next loss. He beats Tyson Nam, beats Bontorin, beats Cody Garbrandt. And that Garbrandt fight, like, let's be honest, if there was anyone who was on Cody Garbrandt, I don't even care to make fun of people. That's not my take. I want to know the take. I want to know why someone thought Cody Garbrandt was going to be able to move to a division that has faster fighters, take on a pure kickboxer who's shown to have tremendous power, especially early in the fight, and come away with a victory. To me, I think that there is something to be said about Kai France's rise. He's only 28 years old with legitimately, 32 fights to his name. It's just one of those things where we're starting to see a guy really develop. And what's funny is we're talking about how people are in their peak at like 30 to 35 years old. You can make the argument that Kai France is in this weird flux of prospect turning into title challenger all at the same time. And I think that his growth has been what has put him on the map in North America and worldwide, because he's already been a huge fighter amongst the Asian ranks and the Australian ranks, obviously in New Zealand. But seeing the rise for a guy that I've loved for a very, like that tough, really exposed people to good fighters in the flyweight division. I think Kai France was one of them from the start. So I think a lot of people are going to be taking Askarov in this fight. It's just really obvious to see that the wrestling, the scrambling ability, and the volume are just areas that Askarov brings it. And it's just hard to see anyone being able to beat him on a good day. But I can see these odds being completely out of whack. I'd like to go with Askarov as a minus 190. I think that it's a fair line. I actually had minus 170 written down, but I think Askarov minus 190 to minus 170 makes sense. I think there's opportunities there for not only public to bang that line, but he's got the hype of a guy who should be next in line for the title shot. So let's take a look. I mean, here's the thing. I think we were on the right track of where this fight's going, right? Minus 350 opener for Askarov. Kai France opens as a plus 265. Now Kai France on some sites is all the way down to plus 200, and Askarov is a minus 275. So talk about the opening line. Talk about the money coming in. There's more money coming in on Kai France than there's Askarov at that minus 350 line. So if you're betting Askarov, allow people that believe in Kai France to keep going, because you have to assume that this line can get to minus 250 based on this line movement. And if you're taking Askar Askarov as a minus 250, now you're starting to get some value in there, because anything above minus 300, I'm sorry to say that Kai France's ability to dance in a fight is very good. And Brandon Royval is probably one of the most creative fighters in terms of ring IQ or octagon IQ. That was more of a telling of how good both of these guys can be against each other rather than how good they are in general. I think that that's something that fighters bring out in each other, and it's what makes elite level fights. And in this case, I think they're going to bring out the same thing in each other, but it's going to be curious to see if Askarov is going to bring out a striking game from Kai France or more of that technical scrambling, looking for openings, because that's what I'm very excited for, is that this is the style of MMA fight where you're going to see everything happen in the span of maybe 5 minutes, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful to watch. So stay tuned for that one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow SookyMMA, and we'll get ready for these next two fights. Peace.